A reading from the letter of St. James. Know this, my dear brothers and sisters. Everyone should be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, for anger does not accomplish the righteousness of God. Therefore, put away all filth and evil excess, and humbly welcome the word that has been planted in you and is able to save your souls. Be doers of the word and not hearers only, deluding yourselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks at his own face in a mirror. He sees himself, then goes off and promptly forgets what he looked like. But the one who peers into the perfect law of freedom and perseveres, and is not a hearer who forgets, but a doer who acts, such a one shall be blessed in what he does. If anyone thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his heart, his religion is vain. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God and the Father is this: to care for orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. The word of the Lord.
Who shall live on your holy mountain, O Lord? Who shall live on your holy mountain, O Lord? He who walks blamelessly and does justice, who thinks the truth in his heart, and slanders not with his tongue. Who shall live on your holy mountain, O Lord? Who harms not his fellow man, nor takes up a reproach against his neighbor, by whom the reprobate is despised, while he honors those who fear the Lord. Who shall live on your holy mountain, O Lord? Who lends not his money at usury, and accepts no bribe against the innocent. He who does these things shall never be disturbed. Be my protector, O God, a mighty stronghold to save me. Alleluia, 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 alleluia. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. When Jesus and his disciples arrived at Bethsaida, people brought to him a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. He took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. Putting spittle on his eyes, he laid his hands on the man and asked, "Do you see anything?" Looking up, the man replied, "I see people looking like trees and walking." Then he laid hands on the man's eyes a second time, and he saw clearly. His sight was restored, and he could see everything distinctly. Then he sent him home and said, "Do not even go into the village." The Gospel of the Lord. The first reading from James spoke about anger, and I wanted to talk a little bit about anger this morning. Anger in itself is not sinful, right? There are different kinds of anger. Some anger is actually good, right? St. Paul says in his letter to the Romans that we should hate what is evil. We should cling to what is good. Jesus cast out the money changers from the temple, right? He was angry. Sometimes a lack of anger is actually the sin of sloth. It's not caring enough about what is good, right? And it's actually being slothful. So when anger becomes sinful, it's when it becomes irrational or unjust. St. Thomas Aquinas says that the deadly sin of anger is the lust for revenge, which goes beyond reason. Right? So anger becomes problematic when you're no longer seeking justice, you're seeking vengeance. Or anger becomes sinful when it is not so much inspired by a sadness at the lack of something that is good, and it becomes more so a passion against what is evil. Right? You can see this many ways in our culture, right? The anger at many things in our culture and the unjust resentment that many people in our culture have, especially towards things of the past. but also in our own personal lives. I think we can all see how anger can affect all of us. It manifests itself in forms of resentment. Or maybe another image you could say is actually an image from Dante. Right? So Dante's Divine Comedy. The people who suffered from the sin of anger, one of the things they experience is they're constantly breathing in smoke, right, in the story of Dante. And that was Dante's ways of saying that's kind of what anger does to us. It completely clouds our vision, and it's constantly distracting us. That's when anger is sinful. It's one of the deadly sins. You become so angry or resentful about something that you can no longer see things clearly. It's this constant fog, this smoke that you're breathing in. Right? There's a lot of ways that we can experience this. We can experience it with a loved one, with a boss, with a fellow parishioner. There are many different ways that evil manifests itself among us. Right? So I just want to suggest two things that we can do to overcome anger that I've found helpful in my own life. The first way to overcome anger is by clinging to what is good. St. Paul, I love that line in his letter to the Romans. Hate what is evil, but cling to what is good. We should never be so angry that we can no longer appreciate the things in life that are actually good, that are worth enjoying, worth receiving. And that's what happens when we become so consumed by resentment. It becomes more and more impossible to even be happy. Right? If you've experienced this, you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you can become so resentful that literally you disdain people who are happy, people who are joyful. We always have to be clinging to what is good and not be so overwhelmed by our hatred for what is evil. The other thing that helps with overcoming evil and resentment and anger is gratitude. Right? The biggest problem that happens when anger consumes us is that it completely takes away our joy because we're no longer grateful for the things that are good. No matter what things happen in our life, no matter what kind of suffering or persecution or injustice we receive, we still need to strive to always be grateful for the things in our life that are good. And as long as we're striving to be truly grateful, a heartfelt gratitude, that anger, that resentment, that lust for revenge is never actually going to be consuming us because there's just no space for that in our heart. Our heart is so full of gratitude and joy that there's no room for anger to really take root.